clase. Vamos a grabar. Compartir. Que todavía estamos en Zoom. Que todavía tengo ciertos problemitas yo con el programa. Tengo conflicto. Ok, vamos a comenzar entonces. Bueno, chicos, aquí les enseño. Este es la plataforma NIO, que es lo que yo les puse acá arriba. Me falta el PowerPoint, que se lo voy a subir ahora más tarde. Los videos que vamos a ver ahora. Y acá entonces el vocabulario. You need to work on this vocabulary number 1, that is on page 638, and the assessment questions on page 642, question 1ABC, 2AB, and 3AB, okay? So these are the activities that you need to complete. In your notebook, remember you need to fold a page saying third trimester, a term, okay? So let's begin then.
Profe, una pregunta.
Yes.
¿El assessment de la página 622 cuenta este trimestre o del pasado?
Yes. The previous one. Acuérdense que nosotros hicimos 2 capítulos que no iban incluidos en su examen. Entonces eso yo se lo voy a pedir, así que espero que lo hayan trabajado. A pesar de que pertenece al trimestre pasado, yo lo voy a evaluar porque debe estar ahí en su cuaderno esos temas. Así que esto, si no lo hicieron, háganlo. Got it? Okie dokie. So let's begin our class then. Today's class is the spread of revolutionary ideas. Now over here in this chapter, it's a very brief chapter, and we're gonna focus only on 2 characters. The first one is this guy. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte. And the other character that is not here is Mr. Simón Bolívar, Libertador de América. Okay, so let's begin then. Okay. Now the main idea is that during Napoleonic era, Napoleon conquered vast territories in Europe and spread reforms across the continent. Esta era se llamó la era napoleónica, the Napoleonic era. After the First Revolution, a young general named Napoleon Bonaparte became a hero in France. He defeated rebels at home and foreign armies that threatened the new republic. The race of emperor. Se convirtió en emperador, o se autoproclamó emperador el señor Napoleón Bonaparte. By the late 1790s, the French had had enough of violence. They wanted order and strong leaders, not the weak politicians who were running the country. So in 1799, Napoleon took part of a coup d'etat. Coup d'etat is a French expression which means golpe de estado. So the same thing that happened here in 1968, cuando los militares tomaron el poder. So it's the same thing. That was a coup d'etat, golpe de estado, donde ciertas fuerzas se toman violentamente el gobierno. So that happened in 1799 with Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, my God. Napoleon took the top position of the new government to France. Then in 1804, with the popularity soaring, he became a leader or the president or the leader in France. So over here, there's a picture that shows the moment when he was crowned, or he was crowning his wife, Josefina. Not Josefina Suarez, Josefina. He crowned Josefina as the imperatrice. He became the emperor of Napoleon, period. Okay, so over here, there's a picture that tells what took place during those days, and it happened in the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Okay, so this is history. This is history. This really actually happened. Napoleon was a remarkable military leader and showed his abilities as he began to take over the rest of Europe. He controlled almost every country here in Europe. Between 1805 and 1808, Napoleon's army defeated the armies of Austria, Prussia, and Russia. As a result, these countries were forced to become allies of France. Se convirtieron en aliados de Francia, a pesar de que no querían, pero ni modo. Napoleón los ganó en las batallas, así que ellos decidieron convertirse en aliados de Francia. Ahora, este mapa le enseña cómo se fue expandiendo y qué dominó el periodo napoleónico. Okay, toda esta área de España, Italia, esta área acá, Prusia, Viena, Austria no logró, Austria también aquí. Poco a poco fueron dominando. Pero mire, ellos quisieron entrar en Inglaterra, pero no pudieron. Ellos no pudieron ganarle a los ingleses. Now, the French troops conquered many countries and forced others to become allies of France. By 1810, Napoleon was the master of Europe. His empire stretched across most of the continent. Okay. Now, Napoleon wanted an effective government and he created one. He put in place a system of public education. He made taxes fairer. Se hicieron los impuestos mucho más justos. He also created the Bank of France as a central financial institution. También él creó el Código Napoleónico. ¿En qué consistía? Vamos a ver. The code reflected many of these ideas of the French Revolution. All men were equal before the law. All received the same civil rights, including trials by a jury. All could practice religion freely. O sea, no había libertad de culto. No. Acuérdense que antes había un conflicto entre los protestantes y los católicos. Entonces, él decidió que, bueno, libertad de culto, el que quiera ser protestante puede ser protestante, el que quiere ser católico puede ser católico. Okay? Now, yet his legal code denied rights to women. Esta es la única parte que no. También le negaba ciertos derechos a las mujeres. In addition, Napoleon did not allow fair elections. No permitía las elecciones. He restricted freedom of the press. Restringía la libertad de periodismo. Napoleon also tolerated no opposition to his rule, and he harshly punished those hostile to him. Todo lo que se ponían a él los mandaba a la cárcel o simplemente los liquidaba. Nadie podía estar en contra de él. Ese era Napoleón. Now, the defeat of Napoleon, la pérdida de Napoleón. La primera pérdida fue con Gran Bretaña. Great Britain was one enemy Napoleon could not defeat. Nunca lo pudo vencer. In 1805, the British Navy destroyed the French fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar. Una batalla muy conocida, la batalla de Trafalgar, en las costas de España, donde destruyó casi todos sus navíos. Los ingleses eran una potencia en cuanto a la fuerza naval. In response, Napoleon ordered all nations in Europe to stop trading with Great Britain. O sea que ahora como perdió, le iba a obligar a que todos los países que él dominaba suspendieran algún tipo de negocio o transacciones con los ingleses. Now, when Russia ignored his order, Rusia ignoró esa orden y ellos seguían negociando con los ingleses. When Russia ignored his order, Napoleon invaded with a force of 600,000 men. Ellos trataron de invadir Rusia. The decision was a disaster for the French. Smart Russian tactics and harsh winter weather forced the French into a bloody retreat. Napoleón no contaba con que el invierno era muy crudo, así que imagínense llevarse 600,000 personas a Rusia, tratar de invadir, eso era una locura, y peor en el invierno, así que fue una pérdida, perdió ese intento de invadir Rusia. Now, with Napoleon's armies weakened, Austria, Great Britain, Prussia, and Russia joined force to defeat the French. Aprovecharon que estaban débiles y estas cuatro naciones se unieron para derrotar a Napoleón. These allies captured Paris in March 1814. In April, they forced Napoleon to give up of power and leave France. Y se fue de Francia. Sin embargo, él nuevamente quiso, eso fue en el 14. So the British and Prussians, however, dealt Napoleon his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo, la batalla de Waterloo, en Bélgica, in June 1815. Esa fue la batalla definitiva. Ahí sí, Napoleón quedó derrotado totalmente, lo agarraron y lo mandaron, like he says, Allies then sent Napoleon away to a small island in the Atlantic Caribbean. He died there 6 years later. Allá lo dejaron y allá murió. ¿En qué isla? No sé, tenemos que investigar en qué isla en el Atlántico. En el Caribe, bien. Ok, now, después de todas esas revueltas vino lo que se conoció como el Congreso de Viena. The Congress of Vienna. It says, at the Congress of Vienna, European leaders tried to restore the old monarchies and ensure peace. And also Napoleon was driven from France in 1814. European leaders met in Vienna to draw up a peace of settlements. They wanted to restore stability to a continent that had been torn apart by 2 decades of war. Now, redrawing the map, redibujando el mapa. En el Congreso de Viena se redibujó el mapa de Francia. ¿Por qué? Porque digo, de Europa. ¿Por qué? Porque Europa está distribuida de esta manera. Entonces, con el Congreso de Viena se logró devolver todos los países a quienes y otros se aprovecharon y se tomaron más territorio. Ese fue el propósito del Congreso de Viena. And then tomorrow we'll talk about this Congress of Vienna, and then we'll finish the chapter with the biography of Mr. Simón Bolívar. Right now, I'm gonna show you a very short biography about Mr. Napoleon Bonaparte as a conclusion of this section of this chapter, guys.
Napoleon Bonaparte. He was an emperor of the French. Napoleon was born on 15 August 1769 in Ajaccio, Corsica, France. His father's name was Carlo Buonaparte, and mother's name was Letizia Ramolino. His father was a lawyer and diplomat, and mother was a housekeeper. At the age of 9, he moved to the French mainland and enrolled at a religious school in Autun in January 1779. In May, he transferred with a scholarship to a military academy at Brienne-le-Château. He began learning French in school at age 10. On completion of his studies at Brienne in 1784, Napoleon was admitted to the École Militaire in Paris. He trained to become an artillery officer, and, when his father's death reduced his income, was forced to complete the 2-year course in 1 year. He was the first Corsican to graduate from the École Militaire. Upon graduating in September 1785, Bonaparte was commissioned as second lieutenant in Lafayette Artillery Regiment. He was promoted to the rank of a captain in the regular army in 1792. In 1793, following a split with Paoli, the nationalist Corsican leader, he along with his family shifted base to France. At the age of 24, he was promoted to the rank of brigadier general and was put in charge of the artillery of France's Army of Italy. Adhering to his plans, the French army slowly and steadily captured the north, east, and west coast in the Battle of Saorgio. In 1795, the Directory took over the control of the country. Bonaparte had supported the Directory and was made trusted advisor to the Directory on military matters. He married a widow named Josephine de Beauharnais in 9th March, 1796, at the age of 26. In 1796, he took over the working of the Army of Italy and transformed the once underfed, disgruntled army into a strong military force. Post the great victory over Austria, he moved over to Middle East, occupying Egypt. He made plans with Emmanuel Sieyès that would allow them to retain their topmost position in the government. He formed a new constitution, which created position of the first consul. In 1800, he became the first consul of the French administration and brought about reforms in various sectors, including economy, legal system, and education. He made Roman Catholicism the state religion and introduced the Napoleonic Code. In 1810, defeat of his army resulted in the fall of his empire. The country was in bad shape as both the country's military budget and military officials were devastated. He separated from his first wife in 1810. He then married Marie-Louise, daughter of the Emperor of Austria, who bore him a son, Napoleon II. He surrendered to the Allied force in 1814. In 1815, he resigned from the powerful position that he held. Though he did make an offer that his son, Napoleon II, to be named the emperor, the coalition declined the same. The British government, for the fear of his return, sent him to a remote island of St. Helena in the southern Atlantic. He died on 5 May, 1821, at Longwood, St. Helena, British Empire, at the age of 51. Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools, said Napoleon.
Okay, let's stop right here, and then let's watch we have time to watch this video in advance that talks about the Congress of Vienna, what took place. Oh, sorry.
In the wake of Napoleon's defeat, Europe is left deeply disorganized after nearly a quarter of a century of revolution and war. Under the leadership of the four great victors over France, the United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, the European countries meet in Vienna to determine the fate of the territories that were shattered by the Napoleonic conquests and reconstruct a European order. Two principles dominate the negotiations: the preservation of political equilibrium among the powers and the restoration of old dynasties, driven out by the revolutionary wave. The decisions taken in Vienna redraw the political map of Europe. Prussia expands to include a part of the Grand Duchy of Warsaw, Swedish Pomerania, over half of Saxony, and above all, the greater part of the Rhineland. With these acquisitions, Prussia definitively obtains the status of a great European power. Russia secures its takeover of Finland. It is granted trusteeship over the greater part of Poland and removes Bessarabia from the Ottoman Empire. The Tsar thereby continues his march towards Constantinople. Austria, for its part, recovers the Tyrol and receives the kingdom of Venetian Lombardy, as well as Dalmatia. These latter territorial expansions give the Habsburg Empire a southern and Mediterranean engagement. The United Kingdom has no territorial claims on the European continent. More concerned with developing its colonial empire, and ensuring the security of its commercial shipping lanes. It obtains a certain number of islands, such as the islet of Helgoland in the North Sea, as well as Malta, and the Ionian Islands in the Mediterranean. Sweden sees its annexation of Norway confirmed at the expense of Denmark, which, in compensation, receives the duchies of Holstein and Lauenburg. France, a defeated power, regains approximately its borders of 1792. To curb its territorial ambitions, 2 buffer states are reinforced at its borders. In the north, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which includes Belgium, is created, whereas in the south, the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia recovers Savoy, the county of Nice, and expands to include the region of Genoa. Finally, the decisions taken at the Congress of Vienna leave the Italian peninsula, as well as Germany, partitioned, in spite of the creation of the German Confederation. The new European order, drawn up in Vienna, marks the revenge of the Ancien Régime against the ideals of liberty resulting from the French Revolution, and fails to meet national aspirations that are growing in Europe. Numerous peoples are left greatly disappointed. The Poles, whose country is once again wiped off the map. The Belgians and Norwegians subjected to foreign rule. Italian and German patriots who aspire to some form of national unity. In the Balkans, the weakening of the Ottoman Empire sustains the desire for independence among Christian peoples. Serbs, Greeks, Bulgars, Romanians.
Okay, guys, we'll stop right here. It's 9:13. And then tomorrow we'll continue and we'll complete this chapter. Do you have any questions? No questions? No, okay, we don't have any questions. Then see you tomorrow to conclude this chapter. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Bye. Guys. Bye. Bye.